Hey boys and girls, welcome back. Today I have something for you Honda files out there. So I recently started a project with a 98 EK hatch, and a couple of the things I wanted to do was a 5-lug hub conversion and a big brake conversion, as well as a rear disc conversion. But I'll save the rear disc conversion for a different video, a different topic. Regarding the big brake conversion, there's a there's a handful of different options out there. There's the aftermarket. I know there's a bunch of different products out there for aftermarket, whether it's what is it, Willwood or anyway, there's a bunch of different aftermarket manufacturers that make big brake kits for EKs. And then there's the sort of poor man's or budget big brake conversion for the EK. And that goes for the EG and DC2 for that matter. Most of those budget conversions utilize an EX trim knuckle, which is what this is. Basically, the difference between, say, a DX trim Civic, like what I have, and an EX trim is the bracket sort of configuration is spaced such that it accommodates a larger caliper bracket that is common on a number of other configurations or a number of other platforms. So basically, you want to start out with an EX trim knuckle. Then there are, I won't get into it too deeply, but there's a couple different options. One of them uses an RL, an Acura RL caliper bracket and caliper. One of them uses a CRV caliper bracket and caliper, which is also the same as the Integra Type R. I think both the USDM and JDM Integra Type R caliper and caliper bracket are the same. And I know that the CRV option is compatible with a Mini Cooper. I don't recall the years, but it's either a 10.8 or an 11.3 inch rotor. Anyway, a Mini Cooper rotor, which is a 4-lug rotor. And let's see, what's the rotor? I think that's also, some people use that for the Acura RL. In any case, you can look that up yourself. There's a bunch of information on the Mini Cooper conversion. And the other option is the Acura RSX or the Civic Si caliper bracket and caliper. So the RSX Type S is the same bracket and caliper as the 06 to 11 Civic Si. It might be the same as the 11 Plus Si. I didn't check. But in any case, that's basically what my setup is. So I'm going to try and take a couple minutes and basically walk through what I did to make that work. So starting with the hub. So this is the original or the stock EK-EX 4-lug hub out of this knuckle. And so it would be great if I hadn't pressed those in. Then I could show you the key differences. But the key differences between the RSX hub and this hub is this diameter that fits into the ID of the bearing. The height of this, I don't know what you call this. Anyway, the height of this, and this sort of raised flange. Now, I should point out, I'm using the RSX base hub. It's certainly possible to use the RSX Type S hub. So the difference is the base has a 32 millimeter spline definition, and the Type S has a 36. What I wasn't sure about, and I didn't feel super duper comfortable with, is basically the material that is supporting the hub in this sort of wall. And so basically, if you make this a bigger hole or you put a bigger spline in there, you know, the whole hub, all the forces applied to the hub pass through this flange. And so if you have a bigger spline in there, you have less material. Would it be okay? I don't know. But what I do know is that this diameter and this 32 millimeter spline is running around all over the place with no issues. I don't know, maybe I should try and find out. I don't know, or somebody can put in the comments, I don't know if the JDM Integra Type R DC2 is this same diameter hub, because I know it's a 36 millimeter. I know it's a 36 millimeter spline definition on the axle. Anyway, so basically you have to turn this diameter down on the RSX hub. You have to trim this flange so that it's sort of, what it does, I don't really have a good way of illustrating, but it sort of nests into the bearing housing. So this needs to be trimmed so that it has adequate clearance. It's a really tight clearance. I don't want to say clearance fit, because that's not quite the right way to explain it, but it's a pretty tight clearance, presumably to try and mitigate debris and dust and junk getting in there. And the other thing is the height of this guy. So the reason why that's important is you want to make sure that this hub is not sitting proud of the bearing. That is the inner race of the bearing, which is the part that I have my fingers on right now. So what you want, right, when your axle's sticking through here and you have the nut clamping it down and pulling the axle shaft against the hub, you want it to be pressing the hub against the bearing. And if this guy is sitting proud, which according to my measurements, it was very close. This without removing material, so I removed around 60 thou, and it was very close to sitting at the same height as this bearing, which is a problem, because then if your axle nut is clamping down on that, you're clamping the hub, but you're not clamping the bearing against the hub. And that bearing is designed to be clamped tightly against the inner race of the outermost bearing, if that makes sense. So, and the other thing I want to point out is the outer diameter dimension on this guy is very critical. So you have to be, I don't remember the nominal dimension, but something like whatever this nominal dimension is, plus or minus 5 thousandths, is not going to cut it. For a precise press fit like that, you need to be, even plus or minus 1,000th is probably going to be too wide. You really need, I think I was within plus or minus a half a thou. And that's as good it's as good as my equipment is gonna be able to do. So just be aware, your machine needs to be capable of what I would consider, I mean, I'm a ham-fisted fucking hack, so half a thou is pretty high precision in my book. Anyway, the point is your machine needs to be capable of some pretty high precision in order to hit that, because that's a press fit into a bearing, and it has literally low tolerance for dimensional error there. I don't know what the spec is in terms of tolerance, but the interference fit on a shaft this size is going to be in the neighborhood of 1,000th, and it's going to be in the neighborhood of plus or minus half a thou, something like that. Anyway, so just be aware of that. Otherwise, that hub will press right in. The other thing that you need to be aware of or need to be concerned about is how far, we're looking at it sort of inverted. Let me flip this over if I can. The other thing you need to be concerned about is how far offset this flange, this surface, sits from the caliper bracket. And basically the EX flange, the hub flange on the EX sits about 100 thousandths closer this way than it does on the RSX Type S or on the Civic Si. And I believe that's also the case for the Integra. The Integra / CRV. I'd have to double check that. But in any case, so what you need to do in order, what you wind up with in that case is the caliper bracket is not sitting centered with the rotor. It's sitting like this. Did I get that right? Yeah. Imagine this is the rotor, which it effectively is. It's sitting like this. So what you have to do is offset the bracket such that the rotor sits in the middle. I shouldn't be using that. That's going to cause confusion. So that the rotor is sitting in the middle of the bracket like that. And so basically what I did was I just took measurements. I measured the offset between the hub flange and the caliper mounting flange on the knuckle. And as I mentioned, the EX is roughly 100 thousandths closer than it is on the RSX. So what I did was I milled 100 thousandths off of the caliper bracket so that it sat further, so that the whole caliper bracket assembly sits further this way. That way, the bracket now sits centered with the rotor. The caliper follows suit, quite literally, and everything fits. The only other thing you have to think about is the dust cover. You kind of gotta negotiate the dust cover a little bit because it rubs. But otherwise, Acura Type S caliper and caliper bracket, Acura Type S, and these are 11.8 inch rotors, and some machining to do on the hub, some machining to do on the caliper bracket, and you're done. I will point out that the caliper bracket, I have seen some guys that accomplish this offset with an angle grinder. I would say that the precision of this modification is far less crucial than it is for the hub. I wouldn't recommend it. I wouldn't recommend that you try and do that with an angle grinder, but I think it could be done. You could do that. So for any of the other handful of options out there that require modification to the bracket but not the hub, I think you could get away with it. And in any case, it's going to be apparent if it doesn't fit. The manner in which that bracket holds the pads is not super precise, so that thing could be a little bit wonky and function perfectly. But you're not gonna get my explicit endorsement to do that. Get somebody to mill that for you. Anyway, that's all I have. That's all I have today. So again, RSX Type S rotor, RSX base hub, RSX Type S / Civic Si caliper bracket and caliper, and that gives you an 11.8 inch rotor. And I don't really see any reason why you would. This is kind of overkill. I don't see any reason why you would need bigger brakes than this. Anyway, yeah, let me know if you have any. If you know another way to do this, or if there's something out there that I haven't heard of, or if you have any questions, put them in the comments. And thanks for watching.